Well, hey, friends, Bill here. We're going to try this again with Warren. We're excited to be back. I did want to sort of go back to the top here on talking to Warren Marquardt here about his open air preaching ministry and the Final Four that that we've known each other, I think, for about 13 years. And really, the point of the story is, you meet guys along the way, and how you begin to work together and so forth. But he came over to London. We were over there. A handful of us were over there during the Wimbledon tennis match early June, and he came over, and he and Darlene, his wife, came over. We met there, and he open air preached for the first time, and then we ended up going to Sydney, Australia together, and had a great time there. And so it's we spent a lot of time together over the years, and so it's definitely exciting about uh, how the Lord brings us together, and then keeps guys out. And Warren is now one of the most faithful guys I know that's out preaching. And so that's the exciting part of this. We have the when you get into open air preaching and stuff, you obviously have the people you're trying to reach the gospel, and then you have the brothers and the sisters you meet along the way, and that's just exciting to watch how they work. So I'm excited to bring Warren on here, and we will chat about him and what he's up to. Warren, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good, Bill. How about yourself?
So now you are now you can make the case that you're in a foreign land. The way it looks behind you, like you could say, "Hey, I'm in the jungles of the Amazon jungles or something."
Yeah,
But you're in
yeah,
Atlantic
that's a
City, right?
place in Florida. That's a place in Florida called the Green Swamp. So I'm just a swamp rat.
Is that what it is? You're a swamp. You live in the swamp. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What kind of animals live in the swamp?
Well, along with me, there's gators, there's coons, bobcats, possum, fox. You name it, I've seen it come through my yard. So
Do they
it's a pretty interesting place.
do they communicate with you? Do you speak somewhat of do you have a language that you share together?
No, I tried. They just looked at me weird and shook their heads. So
Is that right?
you know.
That's funny. Well, I kid Mark Yoho, he lives out in the woods up there in Sugar Valley, that he has a congregation, of the animals in the area. And so you probably have, like you probably have a congregation out there too, of
Well, I
animals.
will tell you a story. There's an alligator that I kind of got friendly with, and I'd sit in my chair along the shore, and he'd be out in the water, and I decided to preach the gospel to him. And so I preached for a while, and then pretty soon he went under really slowly, and then he came back up again. So I guess that's probably self-baptizing. I'm not sure, but
That's pretty funny. That's funny. You
yeah,
think you got convicted? And
yeah, either that or he's like, this guy's too long-winded. I got to go under for a little peace and quiet.
that's pretty funny. Well, you never know. You
Yeah.
never know. The Spirit of God works.
Yeah, it says preach the gospel to all creatures, so
That's what I'm saying.
it's not out of the picture.
That's right. Larry Sullivan just made a comment. If Larry can be convicted of a sin, so can an alligator. I mean, there's hope for everybody, right? So,
There you go.
well, that's pretty cool. So, do you find seriously before we move on? Do you find some sort of a peace in the swamp? Do you have a personal connection with it, or is it
Yeah, I mean, it's
different?
real quiet out here. I can't hear any planes, trains, or automobiles, so the only thing is the crickets get a little loud sometimes at night, but you know,
Do,
it is kind of a nice getaway. So
do you find that you
then
sleep better out there when it's
oh
quiet?
yeah,
Really?
yeah, and then so when I go in the big city, it's not, it's more like a treat. I get to see the pollution in the concrete jungle. I don't see that too often. So
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting. Well, do you ever just get to the point where, hey, I just don't want to leave. I'm going to stay here and not go out?
well, I don't know. I have a drive to want to get out there and reach people.
Okay.
Just to
Sure.
I God has me to that point where I just get a lot of enjoyment out of proclaiming the gospel and
Right.
watching people's reactions.
Gotcha.
And so, um, yeah, I mean, even the best of places, after a while, if you're not preaching the gospel, they're just not gonna do it.
They lose their luster. Oh, that's true. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. So let's go to London again. Tell that story. So we met in London. You came over. You saw Tony Miano on the Ray Comfort show. What was it called?
Yeah, on the box.
On the box. Yeah. And
Yeah, I was watching them, and we had went to Russia the year before for a month, and we just started doing kind of missions and going outreaches. And so when I saw him on there, he mentioned they needed help over for Wimbledon. And so, Darlene and I talked it over, and it sounded like, a really good deal. And the Lord, felt like the Lord was saying go. So we signed up, and I remember talking to you on the phone about it. And I'd never opened air preached before, and you kind of let me know that was kind of the way you did things.
yeah.
And I told you, I said, well, I've done a lot of one-on-ones, so maybe it's just like doing a whole bunch of one-on-ones all at once with everybody standing in front of you. So,
That's what
yeah, I
it is.
was excited about doing it. I think the Lord really, had me confident in going in His Spirit. So,
So the first time you did it right there at the Wimbledon, I know that Wimbledon exit, it's a great spot. You walk right off the train, and that's a busy corner. When you
yeah.
did it, refresh me. What did you think after it was over? Like, hey, that's not that big a deal, or wow, that was amazing. What was your initial thought?
Yeah, it went pretty good. I just hit basic gospel themes, kind of the Romans road, bad news, good news, necessary news stuff. And yeah, I thought it was pretty neat. And then we did some other places where I remember you and we just went to another road, and you went on a corner and I went on another spot, and we just started, preaching. And there wasn't a lot of foot traffic where I was, but I remember people walking by, smiled and all. So it was kind of neat.
Yeah, that's actually a really good spot. Right there at the station, and then over the hill in front of the mall. Remember that? And
Yeah.
and then of course we walked. I think we probably walked up the hill towards the course because that was a busy road. But now you and Darlene, y'all went down. Didn't y'all go down amongst the fans where they would hang out before they went on the property? Did y'all do that some?
There was a place where you camped. It was a
Yeah,
big park, and we
yeah,
were at a church, and some brother said, "Hey, you should go to this park because they queue up, they have to camp there. Um, and then, and to be in line the next day to get tickets." And so it was a campground, and there were rows and rows of tents. And so I was like, so I went and I hit that. I just started passing out tracts to every camp, every tent. And they were really good tracts. They were on the front side. It was like a bookmark. On the front side, it said tennis facts, and it had really interesting tennis facts on it. And on the back, it was kind of like a Ray Comfort style, gives you the gospel. And
yeah,
so what I found out in a hurry is anything that said tennis on it, these people were crazy about it. And
yeah,
so they handed out like crazy. I probably handed out like 500 in probably an hour.
yeah.
Just, and so that was pretty neat. And then there was this one group that I handed them to. They said, "Hey, we want to debate you," but I still had rows and rows of tents to go. So I said, "Hey, I'll come back around." So went down and I came back, and they said, "Are you going to debate us now?" I said, "Wait a minute, I got a few more rows." And I ended up going back there, and I really didn't want to debate, but I thought, well, we'll see what it's all about. And it really turned into a gospel presentation because I think they really wanted to know more about the gospel. And they were college kids, and they had some girls there. And I think they kind of felt, I don't know, maybe their ego, like they couldn't, humble themselves that much or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I just started laying out the gospel about, I think about adultery or something. How Jesus says, if you even look at a woman with lust in your heart, you've committed adultery. And one of the girls that were there looked at him and said, "I think you're really guilty on that one." It's like,
Is that right?
so yeah, it was just yeah, it was a good time. And
That's
then
good.
there was one tent where I went by it, and there was two guys in it, and the one guy said, "I want you to come into my tent," and he had this evil look on his face.
Oh,
I
really?
was just like, "Yeah, I'm not going in that tent for nothing."
Yeah.
And
That's
I think, they seemed like they were Satanists or something. I don't know.
uh,
And they
how,
wanted to like take out the Christian.
how long were you there? How long were we there? 10 days or 2 weeks? I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that. 10 days, 2 weeks.
We're probably there
And
about,
I know we stayed at somebody's house and in there, and that was pretty neat.
yeah, that was a fun trip, except for, that's pretty amazing. Well, that's pretty cool. And then we've been back. How many times have you been back to London?
Oh, I don't know. But we went to Scotland too. And
Scotland, that's right. Yeah.
the Fringe Fest,
Yeah.
that was quite the festival.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No,
yeah, I guess I got the sun hitting me in the back here. Try not to blind you there.
that's good.
Either that or it's the Holy Spirit. I don't know. I can't.
That was good up there. Scotland was really good. The streets were so busy. We
Yeah.
stayed in that dorm. I don't know how I found that. It was definitely a college dorm, I think, and
Yeah.
that was good. That was a good trip. That'd be a good event to go to every year. I
We
don't
were able to hit
miss that out.
what was,
Go
a
ahead.
dual thing.
Say again?
We went to Edinburgh. We went to Edinburgh and Glasgow.
Yep.
And so we got to hit two large cities. Those were both great preaching cities.
They're big. They're good cities, definitely. Yeah, that was a
Yeah, I
good trip.
definitely go back to that again.
Yeah. UK is great the way the cities are laid out, and those two cities were really, really busy. Remember down in Edinburgh how I guess they had that one high street, but just I don't know, they're all really busy. It's just it was busy naturally. You didn't have to have a
Yeah, well, I remember standing there, and by the middle of the day, there was a sea of people going around you. They were bumping your shoulders and everything. But as far as you could look, there was a sea of people coming at you.
yeah, it was
So it
good.
was, yeah,
No, that you could definitely that was good. And Sydney, we went down to Sydney. We talked about that earlier, but Sydney was a good trip, and
yeah, that
Sydney was a lot of people in the streets of Sydney, right?
that was, yeah. Yeah, I had some good interactions. I remember one time I was just reading out of scripture, and some guy come over. Darlene was next to me, and he goes up to her and says, "That's the Bible he's reading, isn't it?" He was just really excited.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that's another good point. When you get out there and do this kind of stuff, like the spontaneous comments of people are oftentimes very positive, right? They're not all like negative,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. They outweigh the negative ones. That's for sure.
So you were commenting earlier too about the fellowship being on a long trip. Just if you remember what you were saying earlier we were together earlier. Just talk about that a little bit and how the fellowship how you enjoy the fellowship and stuff.
Yeah, when we get together, we get we're there 10 days, 2 weeks with 5, 6 guys. We're in an Airbnb. So we're rubbing shoulders, 24/7 pretty much. And you really get to know them. And it's not like, the Super Bowl outreach. You kind of get to know the people on your team a little better, but, everybody else you don't. And so I really like that. So when I go to the Super Bowl outreach, those people who I've been on these trips with, there's just a special friendship there. Right away, we can sit down and it's like, we haven't missed a beat, and I just thinking of some of the guys, like Joe Toy, Bobby McKeary, and a bunch of other guys I can't remember right now, but um, it's I know Jerry. I think it's Jerry Collins and
College, yeah, sure.
and Mark Yoho and all those guys. That I really got to know them. Over there, and like I said too before, you get the fellowship is really great. Typically the schedule is a little different, so it's a little more relaxed. And then we have the teachings in the morning usually by a pastor, and we learn a lot from each other. You get around other seasoned evangelists, and they like iron sharpens iron. You pick up things, maybe demeanors, or just they say it's caught not taught, right? And
Yep.
And so, and then just the personality, you see Christ in these people, and it just inspires you to want to seek the Lord more so you can be like them, you know.
Oh, very true.
And
What is one thing that you really have come to enjoy about the preaching?
um I think I've done it long enough, probably like 12 years now. So I'm more relaxed when I'm preaching. I'm able to just notice more things. I like to read people's faces, um, see the reactions that I get. Um, I know when I first started out, I was kind of you're just not as relaxed. You don't have. It seems like so the and let's see, there's a stray dog that just came by me here, so I kind of just lost my train of thought.
All right.
So but yeah, so and I just enjoy really preaching directly to people. I have people walk by, and I'll have they'll have eye contact with me, and I'll just keep looking at them while I'm preaching. And I remember in New Orleans, we were down there, and there was a bunch of young teenage girls, and one of them we caught eyes, and she was walking by, and she was like all excited that I was looking at her and preaching to her, and she was like tapping her friends on her shoulder,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of neat. Or I'll have guys walk by, and they'll look at me in the eye, and it's pretty much a conversation between me and them as they walk by, and maybe one sided, and a lot of times they'll smile. It's like and and a kind of a funny thing I mentioned earlier is at the university where I preach, people really have headphones on a lot, it seems like, and so I'll be looking people in the eye and preaching, and it just happens to girls typically. They'll be walking towards me, and I'll be looking in the eye, and I'll be preaching, and they'll pull their earphone away and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got to go to class right now. I can't talk," because they think I'm approaching them to talk to them,
Right.
where I'm just preaching. And so I think it's kind of comical in my own way.
That's good. That's good. What do you
Yeah.
not like about it after all these years? What do you not like?
Um, just the anxiety that still kind of creeps up on you. It's a spiritual warfare or something. Probably 20 minutes before I'm going to do it, I just feel like I'm thinking, man, where am I going to preach from? What text am I going to preach from? What am I going to say? And all these kinds of things start to bombard you. And and it's just weird. I've done it long enough where you go, okay, we've been through this before. It all works out fine. Just plug ahead. But it still happens to some degree. And but I did notice this that one time I didn't have that, and it was at Gasparilla the first year, and I went in, I think maybe overly confident and bold, almost cocky. And man, I just like after just a little bit, I just like couldn't think of anything to say. I really had to like pray my way through that. So when it happens like that, I think that's a special time that God is humbling you, allowing that to happen to humble you to really, um, to really to seek Him out, um, to yeah, to just it's a good place to be because we need to be humble when we're out there. We need to sometimes get the flesh down.
That's a good point. Good point. So tell me, what do you? I know a little bit about what you're doing now when I don't see, but what do you do on a consistent basis? What do you preach on a
um
consistent basis?
yeah, I'm going to USF, which is in Tampa, and twice a week. And I started that school at the beginning of this semester, right after Christmas break. And I was doing UCF and abortion clinic there. But when the Lord was really leading and finding the people went there, and it all works out better. It's almost less than an hour for me to go to that one with Harley. And when I go to Orlando, I have to go an hour and a half, 2 hours through some fierce traffic, I-4. So it's kind of been a nice, and there's not hardly anybody's doing anything at that one.
Okay.
So that's kind of been a switch that's happened after the first of the year.
Do they have a free speech zone in South Florida? Where do you stand?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The first day I was there was an open air campaigner guy there. His name was Richard Burley, and Joe Toy knows him. Once I met him, I said, "Do you know Joe Toy?" He says, "Oh yeah." And so, and he was doing open air campaigning. He had a big riddle that you had to figure out, and so his college students would look at this riddle and try and figure it out, and you'd go and help them and give them clues and tell them what the answer was if they didn't guess it. And it had to do with, the answer was a coffin, of course. And so then, since you were there, you say, well, since we're talking about death, what do you believe in the afterlife? Just kind of go into the gospel with it. It was really, really worked good. I mean, we were just busy talking to people all for a long time. And then we were about done, ready to leave anyways. And then the campus people came and said that he couldn't do that with the signage he had. It had to be he had it all set up, like on a cart, and looked like it was permanent. And he said, you got to hold your signs. They can't be sitting anywhere. And apparently since break, they had changed all the rules, or a bunch of them, so that, and it was in response to Palestinian protests. So it kind of was a good thing. So now if you go there, you can go there and you can open air preach and hand out gospel tracts, but you can't use amplification, and you can't be near anybody who has a reservation. So if they've reserved an area, which hasn't been a problem for me, but they made it so if you and so that if you want amplification, you have to pay a $75 fee every time you do, and you have to give them 2 weeks advance notice. So I just don't do that. I just do it without amplification, and I think it seems like the results are the same. God's going to bring those people near you. I generally only use the amplification just to save my voice, not really to be heard on the other side of campus or inside any buildings,
Right.
because that's just that's going to get you in trouble in a hurry. Probably no matter where you go.
Good point. So you go to USF.
But,
where else do you go? You still go to the clinic?
Well, yeah, I go to OWC usually once a week there, and then from there I'll go to, since I'm already over halfway to UCF, I'll go there. See, UCF has 77,000 students, so it's quite a opportunity there. You've always got a heavy flow of students walking by you if you're in the right spot. And then the one in Tampa has like 45 to 50,000. So, yeah, and it's just neat. I mean, we were at UCF going there a lot, and then pretty soon people would talk to us and saying, I meant to stop and talk to you, and these colleges are trying to do class. And so they'd stop, talk to us, and say how they really appreciate what we're doing, and also told us how God was working in their lives. And I really saw the importance to keep coming back to that same, campus. And so that's what I'm doing now in Tampa, and I'm getting, a lot of, people stopping and talking to me that have seen me, and I've introduced myself to them. And in fact, I've introduced myself to too many people. I can't remember all their names. So people are waving at me and saying hi, and I don't have a clue who they are anymore, but that's a good problem to have, I guess.
Sure.
But,
how was the OWC without John?
What's that?
How was the clinic without John being there anymore?
Oh,
is it the same or worse?
It's going good. It's going strong. There is a team of people that were there when John was there, and so there's usually 3 to at least 3 people there every day. And then I get a report. There's a guy that's there and he gives me a report of what goes on every day. And as he does a few of us, all of us that have been there. And so, yeah, I'm really glad to hear that has really kept going. And there's quite a ministry there. The LGBTQ are pretty heavy there. And, you can minister to those people. And we see a high turnover rate with them. And I think, we've shared the gospel with them. We've talked with them. We've loved on them. We've, haven't, hated on them. And I think sometimes they're surprised because they're told that we're these white men out here who hate women.
Yeah.
And, and like the one girl, I was out there and she goes, yeah, you're just a bunch of white guys that hate these women. And I said, what have I said since I've been out here that gives you the idea I hate these women? You've heard me. All I've ever said was, we're here to help you. Is there any way we can help you? And she just kind of ducked behind her group of people. And she knew she was caught red-handed. So,
That's good.
yeah.
What, do you miss John, or is John still remembered?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're going to miss that guy. I mean, he was really special. I mean, he was kind of like, a dad, he was that kind of guy. And, even the people in the clinic, I was amazed when I fill in for him when he was gone. One time they gave me a gift card to give him because they wanted to give him a gift card. So he had
Really?
quite a love-hate relationship with even the people in the clinic. They knew he's a guy you couldn't really hate, but they didn't like what he was doing to their business,
Yeah.
So yeah, he had a lot of stories. I mean, it was, and he had good insight, on people. He really did. I mean, he was a real people wise person. And he went into the jails and ministered in there. And so I definitely would love another opportunity to sit down and talk with him.
Do you think it's possible to shut it down?
To shut down, you mean what's going on?
Clinic, yeah,
the ministry?
Space, yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's of God, and that's why I think John was used. He was a tool that God used greatly, but I think it was a ministry that God ordained it, and so he's the one that keeps it going.
Yeah. What about the clinic? Is it possible to shut the clinic down?
Boy, it would be if it just depended on how good their business was, because with the new ruling that you can't do abortions or after 6 weeks, it has hurt them. They send a lot of people away. They got to be only doing like 4 people a day when they used to do 10 or 15.
Gotcha.
But here's the deal. There's people that support them, like George Soros and the LGBTQ. They get on TikTok and they raise money for them. They pay for people's abortions. So there's a lot of that going on. But if it was just a business depending on customers, yeah, they wouldn't be going.
Gotcha.
But you know what? It is an opportunity. As much as I hate abortion and I don't like to see abortion clinics, it is a point of contact for us to contact a certain group of people.
Right.
And, that's all I can say about that. And I'd love for there not to ever be any more abortions. But on the other hand, are we going to stop all sin in this world ever? I mean, that's
true. I would like to, but I don't think it's going to happen. That's good.
Right. We just at least try it with each individual.
That's true. That's all you can do. I mean, even Jesus, he didn't really stop it in the sense of ending it all not all forever and so forth. So I don't think that's really the mission. Well, cool. Anything else to share before we chat a little bit about San Antonio? Anything else, insights you'd like to share?
Not anything right off the bat, unless there was something I mentioned earlier that you wanted me to bring up again.
Now, just say a word about just encouraging people to who might be afraid to get into the work, to get into it. I think obviously the apprehension is going from, hey, this is interesting, to being on the sidewalk, so to speak. What would you tell them
Yeah.
to, how would you convince them to go ahead and get off the couch and get on the sidewalk?
Well, you just have to spend a lot of time in God's word and praying and really in his presence too. You want to wait until you've been in his presence and that when you are, and then to just know that when you go out there, you make every time you go out there a meeting place for you and God. When I go out there, I feel like I'm meeting God out there, and I'm never by myself. He is with me. In fact, all the things that I do or proclaim are just a tip of the iceberg of what's going on in that situation, because God is working in the hearts and minds of the people around me than, more than we realize, and so just gotta have faith in that, believe in that. Like I say, make it a prayer when you're out there. That's what John always told us. He says, when you're out there, just make this whole day up one big prayer, and 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 I like it because it keeps your mind focused on what you're out there for, what you're doing, and who's really pulling the in the situation. And so you go out there, you can even your first Bible study, even read through, and then comment on them as things come in. And you don't even have to be loud. You don't have to be. I remember just standing on a street corner and just in Orlando, downtown Orlando, just reading through the Proverbs, and every once in a while I'd just read something really good. There'd be somebody standing at the corner waiting for the light, and I'd say, hey, can I show you this real quick? And and if, to my surprise, they thought it was pretty good. So there's people out there that want to know and hear more than you realize, and even the ones that get mad at you, that's not nothing to worry about. I had a brother a while back, and he told me, he said, I think something went wrong. I was trying to witness to this guy, and he got really mad at me. And so I asked him what he had said and all that. And by I could tell. So I finally just told him, I said, no, what you said convicted him. God was convicting him. That was a good thing. And he was really like, oh, really? And so, what happens out there, it's all a win-win for us. There isn't really what you call an evangelistic witnessing situation gone bad or gone wrong. I mean, it always accomplishes what it's supposed to accomplish. In fact, I think I enjoy it more sometimes. Maybe it's that naughty part of me that get them mad, and just at least I know they heard, and they're going to think about it. It hit them emotionally, deeply. And so, it's almost better than the people who just come up to you and say yes, 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 and walk away, and you wonder if they took any of it to heart. But
The good
yeah,
part about
it's
the prayer thing is that I think the most frightening part, see if you agree, is really what's on display is our relationship with the Lord. You can't hide it, and
yeah,
that's what's intimidating. So you really have to increase your prayer time and so forth, right? And then
yeah,
it becomes a very natural process. It's not a ministry in the sense you're trying to be something. You are just communicating out of that relationship. Do you agree?
right, right. You don't try to be anything special, or worry about, oh, do I have oratory skills or anything like that. You just get out there and proclaim it,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's interesting. That's interesting. Um, well, cool. Well, San Antonio, have you been before? Have we been there together before? The Final Four. Let's talk about the Final
I
Four. Have we
have
done it?
not been there, but we went to the Final Four in Houston, and I know
Right.
that
We had a
was a
good time
really
there.
good thing.
Yeah.
Yes, and what I
And
like about the Final Four is they have that music venue every night.
Yep.
And I don't know, there's just something about people going to a music show or whatever. It's different. They're going in a sporting, they're a little more, maybe a little more filled with anxiety and want to get in there and excitement and that competitive spirit's kind of there and that fighting spirit. But at the music fest, I just enjoyed those. It seems like the people
Yeah.
were a little more mellow, if I could
That's a
put
good
it that
point.
way.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark was with us on that trip. Was Andy Schmelzer with us?
Yeah, and I think and Bobby
Bobby?
McCreary,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't remember
It's
who
been a
else.
while, but yes, that was fun. That was a good one. Yeah, we were in San Antonio about
Yeah.
5 or 6 years ago, and they had like 2,500 Jehovah's Witness volunteers. They must have had 100 stands around the city.
Wow.
So I don't know if they'll all come back, but that's when we saw them really increase their effort there in San Antonio. So that's good. Anything else you remember about the Final Four besides the music?
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember we were at those music fest things. The line was all the way down the street, and there was a huge crowd of people in front of the gates.
Yep. Yep.
And so we would be preaching, and they could only let so many people in at a time. So those
Yeah.
people would be held there for a while. Then they could let a number of people in
Yeah.
and come down the road and line up in front of the gate, and we'd preach again to them. And I remember one of the guys was so mad at us, he turned to the police officer and said, "Can you make them stop?" And the police officer just turned and looked at him and smiled, and I thought that was pretty good. And
That's
then
pretty
of
funny.
course, our topic was, since they were waiting at the gate, we were talking about the gate. The gates aren't only going to be open so long. Here's your
Right.
chance,
That's funny.
So, yeah,
Darlene had a sign, didn't she? I remember that. So like she
yeah,
volunteered a sign. So
yep.
that was good. Well, that's cool. Yeah, they had the whole Discovery Park, that park walled off, and that was a good time. I remember that. I think Ryan Denton was with us. I think so. That was fun. Well, cool, cool, cool. Well, good. We're looking forward to it. So let me ask you a couple more questions. We'll wrap it up. So again, somewhat of a question I asked a minute ago, but if you're going to stand before 1,000 guys and convince them, like with a natural reasoning, to start preaching, what would you tell them?
With natural reasoning,
Yeah, just in the sense of just like a natural explanation. What
um,
would you tell them in the
well,
natural realm why to do it? Why to go and
I
do
mean,
it?
I would have to, go biblical and say,
Yeah.
you know, that, Mark 16:15 says that we're supposed to preach the gospel to all creatures,
Yeah.
and the Great Commission is to go out. And that's, Jesus says that if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And so, one of his commandments is to go out and to, do what you can to make disciples and share the gospel and all these things. So, if we're not out doing that, we're not truly loving Jesus, no matter, what we say. And I like, there's this one meme on Facebook. It said something about, if we're not doing that, if we're not doing the Great Commission, we're committing treason against the High King in a sense, because that's what he's, commanded us to do. And, that's from, using the sword to get you going. But I think if I was from another way, I would just say, it really opens up a lot of things when you go out and you share the gospel. Your understanding of scripture will increase, because as you read the scripture, you're going to see what you're doing in the scripture. You're going to say, wow, these people had to go through this and I'm going through the same thing. And so, and I think because when we obey God, that there's a reward for that, and he gives us more of himself. So I think his presence is more readily available to us when we're obeying like that and going out and doing that. There is such a benefit to do it. And it really, I like to say, it's like putting your walk with Jesus on steroids. It really, really accelerates. And I think as when I'm doing that kind of things and praying about it, involved in it, it's like I keep the battle out there, you know? And when I sit on my laurels and I get lazy and I don't want to go do that stuff, God just allows the battle to come on in, and I think I'd rather deal with it out there than, in my heart and in my mind, and so yeah, I think the amount of joy you have is intensified too. The relationships you get better because ultimately you're going to be sharing with other people doing the same thing. And well, I don't, it's just you just have a more camaraderie with these people, and even like when we go to these events, sports or the Super Bowl, I feel bad because I have a relationship with those guys in the people at my church, and I think all churches have that issue, people trying to get them to go out and share and do what they're supposed to do, but yeah, so it's definitely, it's something you'll never won't regret doing, is just getting out there and doing it, because it's, the flesh the flesh don't want to take its fill of, persecution, no matter how, even though it's pretty light here in the United States. I don't know if I can even call it that when I read about what my brothers go through overseas, but it's still, I guess, something to deal with, us spoiled Americans,
Well, that's another way to look at it. You go on the offensive. You can go on the offensive or be passive, be defensive. If you're on the offensive, then a lot of that, the backs off. Like if you just sit right, like it's
Yeah,
the whole idea of the light. If you turn on the light, the room lightens up. If you turn it off, it gets dark, and it'll get dark around you unless you turn the light on, right? And so I think
right.
it's a simple idea, but uh, I think he gave us that authority, or the authority and the command, and that actually puts the darkness on the defensive, and we actually are less under the gun. But one more thing, what is the what would I say? What has been your favorite place to preach? What is your favorite environment to preach at? You like large crowds? You like campuses? You like the French Quarter? What's your favorite place?
I think it's wherever young people are.
Young people. Okay.
I know when we were at the Super Bowl in New Orleans that Saturday night, we were out, it was getting dark out, and a lot of the young high schoolers were coming out, and they seemed, there was a few of them that were pretty responsive.
Gotcha.
And but yeah, I like college campuses, just because the people at those types of places, they seem like they're trying to figure out life. They're applying themselves. They're trying to do something for their lives. They're seeking, they're searching. So, it seems like they're a little more open there. And they interact real well.
Good point.
So yeah, I would say that those are the best places. Yeah.
Cool. All right, cool. All right, Warren, well, listen, what a treat to chat with you today. Thank you for coming on and your patience. We'll see you this weekend, huh? Is
Yeah. See you Friday, huh?
is Darlene coming over?
I believe so.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, stay safe. Don't let the alligators get you.
Yeah. You know, um, there's that saying, that see you later, alligator.
Right.
You know what
That's
the
true.
crocodile says?
That's right.
No, you're supposed to say, I really butchered that, but yeah, see you later, alligator. And
Not for a while, crocodile, something like
well, it's
that.
after, and then I say, what does it? No, what does the alligator say when you say see you later, alligator? And I played that on my daughter, and she said, after a while, crocodile. And I said, no, silly, alligators can't talk. They don't say anything. That's a dad joke I got. She
That
goes,
is.
oh, dad.
That's good, man. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, Warren. Well, listen, good to be with you. Thanks so
All
much.
right.
Take care. Have a good night.
All right. God bless, man.
Okay. All right. Bye. I think what you hear in all these stories, friends, is it's just an amazing work of God in everybody's life and how that work works and carries you forward. And as Warren was saying, the joy of it all begins to take over. It's just a commitment, matter of commitment. The more you commit to it, the more joy there is. There's more delight in the work, and I guess it's kind of that way with anything in life. The more you have a single focus on something, the more you get out of it. And that's the same with preaching. And so then I think you're hearing the stories of everybody, this amazing work of God when we get out there and men get out there and preach the word, and the things happen. God works around it. Whether it's John Barrows at the Orlando Women's Clinic we were talking about earlier, or Warren has been on the campuses, or Sydney or London, you just watch God working. And I think this is where you have to see that if we'll go out there, He will work around us, and He'll open doors that we would not have opened and or could have opened. And I think that's a great delight. So, Warren, thanks so much. Always a lot of wisdom here to learn from everybody. Our friends, thanks for tuning in. We'll check in with you next week. Have a good night. Bye bye.